I absolutely love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so today I'm going to stop and give you my favorite moment from every single movie in the MCU. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your favorite moments from every movie in the MCU, or if that's a little bit too much for you, give me some of your top 5 favorite moments of the MCU. As I went into this, some of these are action scenes, comedy scenes, emotional scenes. Some of them are just, I have nostalgia for when I first saw that scene. It was just such a great moment for me. It's a little bit all over the place, but these are my favorites. One more thing before we get started, I have a companion video to this over on my Patreon page with my 10 favorite moments from the MCU. So I took all of these and picked which ones are my favorites and which movies had multiple favorites, so there's some other scenes in there as well. If you want to check that out, join on Patreon at any level and you can see that. And let's get started with Iron Man, the first film in the MCU. Also still one of my favorite films in the entire MCU. So many great action sequences, emotional moments, and it's a film I think has gotten better with age because I think they paid off so many moments in this film. But my favorite moment still from this film is the very end of the film where he declares,
I am Iron Man.
Now, the reason that this one stands out to me so much is because comic book movies usually have our superhero hiding their secret identity. That's what so much of the genre is kind of about. And then right out of the gate, they kick off the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Tony Stark saying, I'm different, I love the fame, I want you to know that I'm a superhero, and just kicks this thing off by declaring, I am Iron Man. Credits roll. Such a cool moment. I love that one. Moving along to the Incredible Hulk. On this one, I'm just going to go with the final battle where you get to see the Hulk battle it out with Abomination, and you just get these two titans that are incredibly powerful running through a downtown area using cars as boxing gloves, big gigantic chains, and Hulk going smash and sending like this wave thing at him. All of that stuff is what I love from comic book movies. Next on our list is Iron Man 2. And on this one, I think I'm going to go with the third act itself, the two moments that stand out being when Iron Man and War Machine finally team up. Growing up, actually I always kind of liked War Machine just a little bit more because he had a Gatling gun on his shoulder. And finally we get to see the two of them side by side teaming up to take out a whole bunch of drones. But then kind of parallel to this, you have that hallway fight scene with Black Widow and the great little punchline joke to it with Happy down the hallway fighting one guy. Lots of fun stuff in a movie that I got some issues with. Next up is Thor, and I've always enjoyed the fish out of water comedy in this film, specifically from the diner scene.
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!
This is the stuff that's just I get a kick out of it. I think Chris Hemsworth is a really funny guy, but he has a bunch of these little lines in there where he's just commenting about stuff on Earth and horses and dogs and all kinds of stuff like that that just always still makes me laugh. Next one on here is Captain America, the First Avenger, and I have just always loved Steve Rogers' transformation. He just has such a good heart, and he's so inherently heroic that he's transformed, bad stuff happens, and immediately has to go into action, and he's not used to this body yet, so you have him like running and sliding across the ground because he's moving too fast. All that stuff I thought was just really nice way to show all of this that was so true to who Steve was. And then we have the Avengers, which I'm going to totally cheat on this one and just say the entire third act. I love the third act of this film, and it's just basically a 25-minute long sequence of the Avengers just throwing down. Of course, the climax of it, if I gotta go pick one moment, the Avengers assembling moment where they finally start to work together. And they have that big iconic shot as it spins around and you can see all the creatures freaking out a little bit like, uh-oh, maybe we're in a little bit of trouble here. Kicking off phase 2 is gonna be Iron Man 3, and I really enjoy the airplane rescue sequence in this film. We get lots of sequences of Iron Man in these movies battling terrorists and other robots and drones. Here we just get him rescuing people. And for that reason, it kind of stands out to me. Maybe I just have a soft spot for rescue sequences involving planes and people falling. You can just sense the urgency because it touches on a fear you can relate to, of like, what if I fell out of a plane without a parachute? As opposed to, like you're probably not going to be attacked by evil drones. So I thought this one always worked really nicely. Then we have Thor: The Dark World. I struggled a little bit on this movie deciding what my favorite moment was because there's not a lot of moments in this movie that I really like all that much. I went with just kind of that intro sequence with Thor helping out these villages and battling a rock monster. I like that it demonstrated what is he up to when he's not in Marvel movies. When he's not battling the big gigantic bad guys, we see him on these we see this one little snapshot of him on these little quests, and that's the sort of thing that's a little bit more interesting to me. Moving along, we got Captain America: The Winter Soldier, a personal favorite film of a whole bunch of you. For me, I went with the elevator fight sequence. It's just so memorable. It's so Captain America. It ties into the betrayal, the dynamics that were so important to this film. And it's just a really cool sequence to get to see him just take all these guys out kind of effortlessly. Then we have Guardians of the Galaxy. Since this is one of my personal favorite films, and I just adore so many things about this movie, this was a tough one. But I think the thing that has always stood out to me goes back to the nostalgia of the first time I watched this movie and when Drax makes his first joke.
Why would I put my finger on his throat?
What?
That has always just stood out to me because they didn't market the movie at all like that. They didn't put any of his humor in it. So I was just watching the movie, and then as soon as he says that line, why would I put my finger on his neck? I went, is that what this is going to be? And it was. And that kind of just is the symbol, the icon of what so much of this movie was to me. Just such a pleasant surprise. Then we have Avengers Age of Ultron. There's a bunch of really good sequences in this film. I have a number of issues with the film in general, but the actual moments themselves, there's a lot of stuff in here that I really liked. But the one I think stands out to me probably is fun with Thor's hammer. So it kicks off with the sequence where they're all trying to pick it up and just has this great little moment where Steve Rogers almost picks it up. You can see the worry on Thor's face, which of course was paid off so well in Endgame. And then all of this sets up the end moment in the movie, or not quite end moment in the movie, but later in the film, when Vision shows up, they're like, what do we make of this guy? Did we just make another Ultron? Is this guy a threat? And then you have this moment where you can see their faces react, and then we see him lift up the hammer, and they're like, okay, he's on our team, I'll take him. Just such a great setup of what they used Thor's hammer as a plot device wonderfully for laughs as well as for a little bit of emotional payoff in that moment as well. And then we have Ant-Man closing out Phase 2, and for this one, I gotta go with who he's telling stories.
Just chillin'. Of course, Ernesto comes to me because he knows I got mad demon skill. Of course, I ask him. Did Emily tell Carlos to tell you to get to me? What kind of say?
In general, the Ant-Man movies have been on the funnier side. They're intentionally more comedic. And just the big standout there is him telling these stories. And one of the things I just dug about it is that it's funny no matter what. It's not like tied to Marvel in any way. It's just a really funny thing that they came up with for these movies. And so it sort of stands out as a little bit different as just really great comedy. Moving along to Phase 3 with Captain America: Civil War, another movie that for me has a whole bunch of just standout moments, but I think I gotta go with the airport sequence. I mean, it is just kind of a nerd's dream come true, watching all of these characters throw down. The sequence isn't short, and it gives everybody something to do that's cool as well as something that's funny. You have camaraderie while you have rivalry, little bit of stakes, not quite as much as some people wanted. Doesn't change the fact that the sequence in and of itself delivers on everything that I wanted it to deliver on. Then we have Doctor Strange, and I went with the city battle between Doctor Strange and Caecilius, where I think this just kind of highlights what the movie does best, which it just had a very cool visual style to it. When it comes to the story, maybe a little bit too much Marvel formula, But when it came to the visuals, I think they discovered something very interesting and doing like this kaleidoscope type of effect, a little bit like an Escher drawing brought to life as an action sequence in a Marvel movie that's true to the characters while also just being something interesting in and of itself. I know some people have been like, it's just like Inception, it's just like Dark City, which for me, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. It's that stuff in a comic book movie. Like, it's not like we're doing Inception every year. It's like doing it once every 10 years. I think I'm okay with that, especially in a new context. So I just loved the visual style that they did here. Then we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This is a movie that I mentioned before. I'm not the biggest fan of it. It does have a lot of really strong moments. So it did take me a little bit to decide which one I wanted to include in here. Even some of the post-credit scenes are really cool. I decided to go with Yondu's Mary Poppins moment.
Hell yeah, he's cool.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
So for me, this moment kind of is the symbol of the great payoff for his character. Throughout the course of 2 films, you start to realize the real dynamic between him and Star-Lord. It pays off some of the emotional elements of the film, and it's just a good laugh. Moving along, we got Spider-Man Homecoming, another movie with a bunch of moments that I absolutely loved, but the one that stands out to me is Peter Parker showing up to pick up his prom date, only to have the Vulture open the door and be super friendly and invite him inside, and you realize that he is her dad, all of it leading to the car sequence where Vulture starts to put everything together. As a twist, it absolutely worked for me. It fits the size of this movie, and it's one of those little plot points that makes the smaller scale of the film work because it is personal, it is tied to people around him, and it makes certain plot points earlier in the film make sense as to why Peter Parker just happens to be right by where some of these deals are going down. Then we have Thor Ragnarok, another movie that once again has a bunch of fantastic moments and great jokes in it. I think I just went with Thor vs. Hulk. It kicks off with some great lines from Thor.
Yes!
And then you get a throwdown between 2 of our favorite Avengers just duking it out left and right as Thor's a little bit confused as to why Hulk is going crazy on him.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
It's just fun to see our heroes fight one another. Then we have Black Panther. This is one that I actually had to spend a lot of time thinking about. What was the scene that stood out the most to me and kind of hit me the most? And I decided to go with the resurrection of Black Panther, kind of this whole little sequence where they show up and they start talking to M'Baku and they're, what will you take over? And in the middle of it, he just kind of starts laughing a little bit. And it just like breaks the tension with his character and makes him so likable and so fun instantly just by this gigantic guy starting to giggle. And then it leads to the actual resurrection sequence where he's like, we got the body right here. And they give him the formula. And it goes into this kind of dream sequence where you have T'Challa kind of talking down to T'Chaka about the fact that like the past of Wakanda, like the choices they've made were wrong, and then you kind of have the hero of our story transformed by the villain. The villain won kind of the moral victory of helping these people to understand, like, Wakanda probably should be doing more to help people that are helpless. And that brings us to Avengers Infinity War, a movie that I absolutely love. So this was brutal. I'll give you a runner-up. I just loved the interactions between Thor and Star-Lord, as Star-Lord is just so insecure. But the moment I'll pick, Thor arrives in Wakanda. Kind of one of the classic things in big war movies, big action movies, is the here comes the cavalry moment. And the MCU Avengers movies do that better than anyone, as they have this moment where you start to feel that they're losing the Battle of Wakanda, and our minds are focused in on that, and then just a beam appears, and you just see Stormbreaker first. And then in the middle of it, you appear with Thor, with 2 of our Guardians of the Galaxy. Just such a great, cool moment that just you feel yeah, they're gonna go get him. And even as you have this kind of moment where Hulk says that, it just all works. Then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, and this is another movie that I think has a lot of really good moments. I dig this movie for what it's trying to be, but I'm going to go with the final chase sequence that I think has all the things that have made these movies a lot of fun. Because during the big chase itself, they do all these things involving the shrinking technology, some of which are really funny as they're like throwing a Pez dispenser and making a motorcycle shrink, that are all both interesting and amusing at the same time. Real quick before I give you the final three, remember to share your picks down below in the comment section. What are some of your favorite moments from the MCU? Also remember, there's a companion video to this where I actually tell you my specific 10 favorite movies of the MCU. And if you've enjoyed this video, I've got a bazillion other MCU videos on my channel. You can check some of them out in this playlist right up here. Jumping forward, we have Captain Marvel. For this one, I had to think about it a little bit, but when I asked my wife, we both came up with the same answer. The Flurkin eating a bunch of people. They've been setting up this joke about Goose the cat not being a cat, but actually being an alien. And so they just run around with the cat, and they're in this hallway thinking, uh-oh, guys with ray guns are about to get us. And then our Flurkin decides to eat all of them, and you just see the looks on their faces, and then it pays off so nicely with a great little Samuel L. Jackson moment. Okay.
Good kitty.
Our next to last film on the list is Avengers Endgame. And I don't know how you pick a favorite moment from Avengers Endgame when there's just so many classic, amazing moments in this one. It's like designed to just pay everything off. Of course, when you have Captain America yielding Mjolnir, amazing. If you were in a theater that opening week, you saw a crowd of people go, yeah, at that moment. But the one I think I'm going to go with, the portal sequence. I mean, just back to that idea of the here comes the cavalry moments inside of action movies. I don't know how any movie could ever top the portal sequence. It was set up so well that we both knew that the people had been brought back, but we didn't know when they were going to show up, how they were going to show up. So you get to this moment where Captain America is staring down Thanos' army, barely able to stand with a shield that's destroyed, but he can do this all day. So he's standing there, he's about to go one more round with Thanos. And then just right in his ear, on your left, and the portals start opening, and it is just so perfectly executed in how they delivered that moment. The score from Alan Silvestri, just amazing, amazing a moment in cinematic history. And our last movie on our list is going to be Spider-Man Far From Home. And I'm going to go with the first Mysterio illusion sequence that was just so cool in the way that it plays out, because it both is dreamlike in the way it does things, but it ties into the real world as well. So you have Spider-Man trying to punch Mysterio, and he punches a brick wall that wasn't there before. And so it's like your mind is kind of like, you feel what Spider-Man felt in that moment. It keeps twisting and you keep thinking that the illusion is over, and then it keeps going a little bit more. Really, really well done in how they executed that first one. And so it was my favorite of that movie. So there you have it. Those are my favorite moments from each of the movies inside the MCU. And a few of them I gave you a couple extras there. If you actually want to know my specific 10 favorites, you can check that out over on my Patreon page. Join at any level to see it. If you want more Marvel stuff right now, you can also check out that playlist right over there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.